Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I'm very sorry, I did say that I would do this next instalment on 1 week on from the original Kew walk around. However, life has a way of happening. I need to not make promises about when videos are going to go up because it just seems that jinxes it. Anyway, a lot has been happening in the world, as I'm sure you're aware. I think it's important for me to say now that as I'm filming this, we are on day 5 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and I think I just want to acknowledge that that's happening because it feels a bit weird to make a video about normal stuff when something so heinous is going on in the world. So just heartfelt thoughts to anyone and everyone suffering in that situation, and the various countries who understandably have a lot of fear right now. So you are very much in my thoughts and in the thoughts of everyone that I know. So today we are going to do a part 2 of Kew Gardens for the Orchid Festival 2022. Hopefully that brings a little light relief in the midst of a very crazy world at the moment. So this, I think, is the most exciting one. I probably shouldn't say that, as I've got 2 more videos to go of this, but this is the one where we go to the Tropical Orchid Zone and the Temperate Orchid Zone in the Princess of Wales Conservatory. So it is by nature the most interesting part of the whole exhibition. Just before we start, I did want to show you my pride and joy, my 2 gorgeous Phalaenopsis orchids which have rebloomed, and if you watch my orchid video from February, March, no, now we're in March, from January, I can't remember when it was, this was all in bud and now it is in flower, and she is a beauty. She's a bit of a surprise because, quite honestly, I thought she was a different orchid. So it turns out the orchid I thought she was is dead. So, but we're very happy to have you, little orchid. She's very pretty. So yeah, I'm very thankful that she's done so well. And this is despite being in a really not great pot situation, but it would seem she thrives off neglect. Similarly, this other one is not in a great potting situation, but also has rebloomed. So this beautiful Phalaenopsis was given to me by my mum when I had my tonsils removed in 2018, and this is the 2nd time she has rebloomed, and this one is an even worse situation. She's just in sphagnum moss. And quite dry at the moment, so I need to do a good old soak, I think, honestly. But yeah, look at that gorgeous colour, so pretty. And we have one more coming, so she's not been overly prolific on the new blooms, but that's fine. That's fine. I suspect I probably did something to stunt that at some point. Probably watered her. Who knows? Anyway. With that all being said and shared, let's get on to the orchids. So we begin our 2nd part of our journey in the Tropical Orchid Zone. So we see the Vanda Orchids, which naturally are a tropical orchid. We have some beautiful specimens here. I have to tell you, quite honestly, that my orchid knowledge is not fantastic, if you couldn't tell already. So I thought it might be a little bit more interesting to talk about some facts about Costa Rica and some interesting points that have been made about why Costa Rica is so biodiverse, what they've been doing in terms of their conservation, and a little bit about their orchids and their orchid biodiversity. So a lot of this information I have gleaned from a really interesting article from Kew Gardens themselves, so I will leave a link to that in the description, so make sure you check that out if you are interested in any of these facts. So Costa Rica is obviously the country of this celebration, this festival that Kew has put on this year. So they have around 500,000 species of plants. So that is around about 5% of all the species on Earth. So that what makes that quite interesting is that Costa Rica only makes up about 0.03% of the world's entire land mass. So if we're talking about kind of volume of plants, in volume of biodiversity, I suppose, that actually makes it an incredibly biodiverse place. And I believe it is one of the most biodiverse in the world. So how that came about, which is actually really fascinating. I'm not brilliant at my geography, so I will give you the abridged version. So 20 million years ago, the North and South America were actually separate. So movement of the tectonic plates in the Earth's core, I guess, resulted in sediment building up between those two continents, and that created a land bridge, otherwise known as an isthmus. Isthmus? I-S-T-H-M-U-S. It's not a word I've come across before. So that became the Isthmus of Panama. This joined the two American continents for the first time in 150 million years. So you can imagine over 150 million years, many different types of species had grown and developed and evolved on different continents. So when these two joined, it allowed many species from those separate continents to meet and interbreed, I suppose. So this actually has made for a really rich climate for Costa Rica, as it has both Atlantic and Pacific coasts. So on the Atlantic side, they have predominantly wet seasons, and on the Pacific side, they have variable wet and dry seasons. So that makes for quite different climates, and obviously makes that quite interesting and valuable to different types of plant. Combined with that, they have volcanic soils, as they still have the volcanic regions that first involved those tectonic plates. They have high altitude, which creates yet more climate diversity, and they have some incredibly tall mountains, which are up to 3,000 meters in height, over 3,000 meters in height. And all this kind of leads to 12 different ecosystems within this one country, which is quite incredible when you think about it. It kind of makes me think about the Princess of Wales Conservatory, which has 10 different zones, and how much is involved with keeping those 10 different zones happy. You can really feel the difference when you walk through the different zones, and to have that all in one country is quite incredible. Nay, more. 12 in one country. So Costa Rica has been making a concerted effort to conserve their biodiversity, because in 1940, around about 75% of Costa Rica was covered in forest. By 1987, it was estimated that around about half was destroyed. So the government stepped in at this point and created laws banning deforestation without government approval, and they incentivized Costa Ricans to help restore the forests. So today, they have 60% of their country which has returned to forest cover, which is incredible, in 40 years or just under 40 years. And it is the first tropical country to entirely reverse deforestation, which is a pretty epic claim. So, as we look into this orchid cabinet, just jumping back to the footage, on the right here we can see I cannot say this, the Guarianthe skinneri, which is the national flower of Costa Rica. So we've moved past it now. I feel like I was too brief on that one, but it's not in flower, so you can't see it in its full glory. The kind of nickname for it is the Guaria Morada, which is a little easier to say. But it is a beautiful flower. I will try and insert a picture next to what we skimmed over. So in Costa Rica, as you can see there, it has 1,600 orchid species. There's some details on there if you wanted to pause, but the rough outline is that there's 20% of those are endemic to Costa Rica, which means they live nowhere else on the planet other than in private collections. So they are isolated to that region, which, if you think about it, that is quite incredible. That's about 180 species of orchid that only live in Costa Rica. And bearing in mind, in Costa Rica, there are thousands of plants that are yet to be identified. When we went to Kew, we had a little talk on how they go to Costa Rica every year, I think it's every year, and describe something like 500 species, not of orchids specifically, but 500 species of plants every single year in Costa Rica alone, which is quite incredible. I haven't got that fact written down anywhere. That is purely based on my memory, so if anyone knows anything to the contrary, please do call me out in the comments. Little bit of self-doubt there. So essentially, the latest biodiversity estimates reflect that Costa Rica possesses the richest orchid flora in the world, which makes for a perfect candidate for this glorious orchid show. On the last video that I posted, it was mainly Cymbidiums, let's be real, and Phalaenopsis. So hopefully this one is a little bit more interesting to you orchid fanatics. I am so getting into my orchids at the moment. I don't know, every time I see details about the Orchid Festival or I attend one, it just really kind of ignites that fire for me. And I'm really not a flower girl. So it's unusual for me, but I don't know, something about them. I love these gorgeous Paphiopedilums, Philippiensis, I think it is. I have my eye on one on eBay, which is £50, not in bloom. But the problem with buying orchids on eBay, which I don't know how to get around this, so I'm yet to do any purchasing on eBay, is I worry that they may be poached, and I don't know how to ensure that hasn't happened, short of really getting into the orchid community and getting to know sellers, that kind of thing. So I believe that little white one's a Christmas star orchid. So here we've got another of those national birds. I tell you what, we went to the Kew Night, Princess of Wales or Orchids at Night Festival. I can't remember how they branded it basically, but those birds look 10 million times more incredible at night than they do in the daytime. I feel like they get lost in the day. There's some really fascinating orchids in here. I wish I knew a bit more about them, so please, if you know anything, tell me in the comments. Look at this gorgeous flower spike. I mean, that is something else. I would guess that's an epidendrum, but I have no idea. And I do really like these little Cambrias. I think they're Cambrias. I hope they're Cambrias. This probably is quite frustrating to anyone who really knows their orchids, listening to me waffle on when I clearly don't know very much. So I am sorry. If you haven't already, feel free to put this on mute. Yeah, it's just beautiful. And I find with Kew, it gets a bit overwhelming just looking at everything and trying to take everything in. I mean, even just looking back on this footage, I see plants that I didn't even notice, I guess because I was so absorbed in looking at the orchids, but there's some really beautiful foliage in here as well. I think I was trying to get to a label there, but it proved to be not possible. Yeah, I love this one. I'm not sure what it is. If you know, tell me. Yeah, so I think we're coming to the end of the tropical orchids zone. So we're just about to go into the temperate, and I can't decide which one I prefer. I think they're both incredible. Some little mounted orchids as well. Do you know something? I quite like how Kew's glass is not sort of pristine and well kept. Something about it really adds to the atmosphere. So now I think those are Brigmansia. I could be wrong, but I think we come to some more later in the video. So some glorious ferns there. Now these were some of my favourite. There's something about this kind of muted colour that I'm really into, and I didn't expect to be honest. Look at all that orchid bark on the floor. So it's a Dendrobium kingianum. So here is, I think, my favourite arch every time. It's pretty much done the same way every time. But I think we've got some lovely Nelly Islas in there, some good old Cambrias, and some Dendrobiums as well. Another bird. So here is the temperate cabinet of orchids. We have quite a lot of Paphiopedilums in here, I think, from memory. Apologies, when we're doing the glass filming, it's really hard to actually get anything to look as I really want it to look. It's kind of one of those things you can only really appreciate in person because of the reflection and everything that comes up when you're filming, but it is absolutely stunning. I love that sort of frond-like, I think it's a Dendrobium, and some gorgeous paths, so pretty. And similarly, I think on video we get a lot of the background involved, which I didn't even honestly really notice until I looked back on the footage. I love these little, they're like little white angels, aren't they? Or little white monkeys? I'm not sure, but I love them. Some hummingbird and orchid bee details, that kind of thing on there, if you wanted to pause. So yeah, you can get a good idea of the background on there now. Someone tell me, how do I get my orchids to look like this? If only. Now that, I think it's another Dendrobium. I think I would genuinely mistake for a grass. I would never have thought that was an orchid, quite honestly. But yeah, very pretty nonetheless. I didn't even spot this fella with his flower spike right up there, hence why we're going back to it. I think this is the point where we got quite stuck, so apologies if the footage is a little repetitive. It was so busy, so busy, and it was quite hard to move. Quite honestly, I think it's one of the busiest I've been post-pandemic, lockdowns, that kind of thing, since coronavirus began, I suppose. Now this little one, he's so cute. I love that one. Some very gorgeous little yellow orchids in a gigantic pot. I'm always quite intrigued to see these potted orchids because I can't figure out how that would work in my flat. So that's one archway. And yeah, this is where I fell in love with Hoya linearis last time, was this specific combination of Hoya linearis against orchids is beautiful. And then I bought one and killed it. I think I could be wrong, but I think these are just Cambria hybrids. They could be something else though. Not sure what that little fella is, but very cute. So I think next we have, oh, I can't remember what his name is, but we have a little display coming up of some native orchids to Costa Rica, which is lovely. Little Paphiopedilum there. And here's the Brugmansia, Charles something. I cannot remember his name. Now here is our little orchid stop for Costa Rican orchids. So we get some lovely Masdevallias in here. I think it's Masdevallias. And Dracula orchids. I'm not sure what that one is with the little orange, almost like bead-like looking things. But this little cute little face, look at that. I just love these orchids. So that's your Masdevallia amabilis something. And this lovely yellow fella, he's very beautiful. I'm sure I've seen him in one of my orchid books for his very intriguing structure. I think a lot of their structures are designed to trick pollinators. So that was not an orchid. And lovely Dendrobium again. This one was quite interesting. I'm actually not sure what he is, but just, I don't know. This is why I kind of get overwhelmed, because there's so many beautiful orchids. I'd love to know everything about all of them, but there's just so much to take in. I'm trying. I'm trying to get to know my orchids, but it's hard. It's a very humbling experience, let me tell you. I'm quite used to going around Kew Gardens and being able to point out a lot of houseplants that have become common lately. Now this, I always love this display. They've always got a beautiful sort of ladder type arrangement in here, and it's just so beautiful. They don't have as many orchids this year to kind of make it stand out, but it's still very, very, very pretty. I think it's because it's yellow and green, the yellow blends in a bit. I think in the past they've used more pinks and reds, but it's still very, very beautiful. And here we have another archway coming up. Yeah, this was honestly not easy to film at this point. It was truly human blockade. So some more Nellies, I believe. I could be wrong. Please tell me if I am. I am very willing to be corrected here. And this is my absolute favourite of the whole thing. Took me by surprise, gorgeous little delicate salmony pink little pretty flowers. Pretty. I'd love some of those. And some very striking flowers, which I think are Cambrias. And this, yeah, this particular bit is quite difficult to get without filming people. So hence why we're getting a lot of up shots. But yeah, just beautiful. And there's so many amazing little orchids tucked in here, there and everywhere. And I feel like it's a shame they're not all in bloom, because so many of them get lost, and everywhere you look there's a little pocket of yet another mounted orchid. This one I think is incredibly cute as well. My phone was struggling with focus because it's so small, but so pretty, so pretty. I think I need another trip to Kew just to understand what I've seen. Yeah, so pretty. More Brugmansia. See, I know that name. Brugmansia is my cymbidium from last video. So this is what I mean. They've got lovely little mounted orchids, and they're so tiny. I mean, they are naturally very tiny, but it's a shame because more could be made out of those, really. But there we go. They're not quite as striking as these gorgeous flower displays, so I'll give them that. And that's pretty much it, guys. We're heading towards the Pacific coast for the next bit, so I'll say goodbye. So I hope you enjoyed that little walkthrough. A few more factoids for you this time round. I've had my time to absorb all the information and do a little bit of research and understand, but I hope that brings a little bit of light relief in this crazy world that is honestly kind of just beyond belief at this point. I hope everyone is doing okay. Please let me know in the comments. Let me know what you thought of this video. I loved reading your comments on the last one, so very much appreciated from me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will be back very soon for part 3 and then part 4. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.